I didn't get a raise, I didn't get lucky, I got approved. Somewhere deep inside my head, hidden away behind layers of daily noise and psychological defense mechanisms, there is a desk. It is a cold, functional gray metal desk, the kind you would find in the damp basement of a forgotten government building. Above it hangs a single, flickering fluorescent light tube that hums with a low, distracting buzz, casting long, stark shadows across the floor. And behind that desk sits a man. He wears a tired, unyielding expression, and he has read my personal file 1,000 times over. Every single time abundance or money tried to come toward me, he reached down, picked up that weathered file, flipped through its dog-eared pages, and stamped it with heavy ink, DENIED. Not because the money wasn't real, but because I wasn't approved to receive it. You have one too. A version of you is sitting behind a similar metal desk in the dark back office of your own mind, operating as the ultimate gatekeeper of your reality. This internal underwriter is deciding, long before any real-world client says yes, before any raise gets offered, or before any major contract closes, whether you are actually the kind of person this sort of success happens to. Most people spend their entire lives fighting external phantoms, blaming a volatile economy, a shifting market, their difficult boss, or their terrible luck. Meanwhile, the real definitive decision was already made in a quiet back office they never even knew existed. You can pitch the most brilliant proposal to an external boardroom, but if your internal officer has flagged you as a high-risk asset, you will fail. Here's the part of this psychological reality that should scare you a little bit. That internal officer doesn't work off truth. He does not care about your hidden potential, your grand dreams, or your good intentions. He works strictly off documented evidence. Every single time you played small, unnecessarily apologized for your price, or took the degraded version of yourself that settles for crumbs because it feels safer than asking for the whole meal, you handed him another page for the file. You gave him another valid reason to deny your next big application. He is not cruel. He does not hate you. He's just doing his job with meticulous accuracy, running a risk assessment based entirely on the defensive paperwork you keep giving him day after day. I found this out entirely by accident 8 months ago. I was sitting in my car, parked just outside a major client's corporate office. My hands were gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly, and I was preparing to walk through those glass doors and underprice my services for the 11th time that year. I was rationalizing it, telling myself that the market was tight and that I just needed to secure the deal. Right then, a sudden thought landed in my mind that I didn't ask for. I keep applying for a loan I've already decided I can't repay. That single sentence didn't feel like motivation. It felt like a cold, clinical diagnosis. It revealed that I was trying to secure a high-value reality while holding onto a low-value identity. Because here's what nobody tells you about money. It isn't chasing raw skill. It isn't even chasing relentless effort or late-night sweat. Money is chasing approval risk. Traditional commercial banks don't lend millions of dollars to the most talented or passionate person in the room. They lend exclusively to the one whose financial file makes the loan feel completely safe, predictable, and routine. Your income, your career opportunities, the exclusive rooms you get invited into, they're all being underwritten by the exact same cold logic every single day. They're being judged by an internal version of you that is absolutely terrified of an emotional or operational default. If your file says a larger contract will cause you to panic, your internal underwriter will reject it. So I stopped trying to convince the external market. I stopped changing my marketing materials and working longer hours. I went straight for the back office. I went straight for the officer. The first thing I did was pull my own file. It was a brutal, specific process on paper, recording every place I'd quietly told myself not yet, not me, I'm not ready, or that's too risky. And the underlying pattern wasn't laziness or lack of discipline. It was fear of a default, the terrifying moment you finally get the money, the client, or the opportunity, and you realize you can't make good on it. So the officer, doing exactly what he's built to do, kept declining my applications to protect me from a default that hadn't even happened yet. That's the part that reorganizes everything if you actually let it sink in. He's not against you. He's protecting a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. He's guarding a ghost, and he'll keep protecting that ghost until you give him brand new paperwork. So I gave him new paperwork, not affirmations, not a colorful vision board, evidence. Small repayable loans first, a slightly higher price, said out loud without stuttering, and delivered on perfectly. A firm boundary held with a client and nothing collapsed. A room I didn't belong in, walked into anyway, and survived. Each one got filed. Each one changed the risk profile on the desk. The officer didn't get convinced by a loud motivational speech. He got convinced by an undeniable track record. And somewhere around week 6, something shifted that I can only describe as the psychological interest rate dropping. The constant friction began to evaporate. Opportunities that used to require immense amounts of groveling, endless follow-ups, and desperate pleading started arriving at full asking price. Premium referral came into my inbox, and I quoted a number that would have made me physically flinch and sweat back in January, and I didn't flinch. My heart rate stayed perfectly steady. The file had officially changed. The underlying risk profile had been rewritten. Because the internal underwriter had accepted the new paperwork, the real-world approvals started clearing faster through my life than my conscious mind could even process them. By month 8, the actual balance on my business bank account was $50,000 higher than it had been. But I want to be entirely honest with you about this because half-truths are how this whole industry stays fundamentally broken. The money wasn't the actual strategy. The money was merely a lagging symptom of a deeper internal shift. The true strategy was closing the systemic gap between the person who was desperately applying for success and the person whom the internal officer could actually approve without lying to himself. It required aligning my everyday actions with the high-value reality I wanted to claim. Here's the transformative belief that ultimately did it, distilled into 4 simple words. I need you to actually sit with this thought instead of just scrolling past it. I am not overdue. You are not behind in life. You are not arriving late to the table. You are not begging for something that rightfully belongs to someone far more qualified than you. The precise moment I completely stopped filing myself as a dangerous operational risk and started filing myself as a fully paid-up, trusted account, the entire underwriting process changed its speed. Most people spend their entire lives trying frantically to fix their external bank accounts. But the truth is, you have to fix the bank first, the ancient, rigid financial institution that has been running inside your own skull. That internal bank has been executing unprompted credit checks on you since long before you can even remember. It was built from the stressful arguments at your childhood dinner table, from a careless, discouraging comment a middle school teacher made, from a terrifying year your family went completely without resources, or from an old version of not enough that permanently got filed away in your subconscious as an absolute fact instead of what it actually was. One isolated data point presented as a lifelong verdict. You need to understand this deeply. You are not your worst fiscal quarter. You are not the specific year everything fell apart. That difficult period is just one single line in a massive, comprehensive file that contains thousands of other lines, and your internal officer only weighs what you actively choose to resubmit to him today. He is bound by the evidence you present in the present moment. So before you turn away from this message, do the one specific thing that actually moves the numbers and updates the ledger. Pick the smallest loan you've been too scared to apply for, the raise you haven't asked for, the price you've been shaving down out of fear, or the major offer you've been sitting on. Step up and approve it for yourself on paper today, not next week, not someday when you feel magically ready. The file only updates on hard evidence, and evidence only gets created the moment you stop waiting for permission from a gray metal desk that was never real in the first place. Because somewhere in the quiet architecture of your mind right now, there is another massive application sitting on that desk with your name printed clearly across it. It is fully funded and ready to change your life, and the only signature it has ever been missing is yours.